So the next part of the activity then. The next part of this then will be, okay, just straight into examples of the impact of your own role, the team, the business, client community as before. So just how I do this as well then is make these your titles, these questions, make your titles and do it that way. So it's really clear and easy for you to complete it as well. The costings, that's one for you and your company to decide. For larger companies, you might have a set fee already in place. It might be a case of what work required. Again, it's up to you to, that'll always be different depending on who you work for.
Will be involved in this.
Again, when the information can take place, that is dependent on the authorities as well, isn't it? So again, it's about putting down your documentation, your activity, about the communication, and it'll be different based on the availability of certain people. And again, like a funeral, if, as Greg said, the coffin's taken from that location into a new coffin and onto another burial ground, like we have done here before, we did the whole exhumation and then the burial in one day. First thing in the morning, and then in the afternoon, kind of the actual burial again. And I think I did that pretty much the same cost as the funeral, pretty much.
Yeah, I remember getting to Beacon Hill Cemetery about 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's all close.
It's not exactly down the road from me.
No.
I think Coles Hill, do you know Coles Hill? Yeah, I did from there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, so happy with activity one. As I say, use the questions as your titles. Easiest way to do it. Yeah. Activity 2, go straight into that. How would you protect yourself and your colleagues? Who else needs protection? How would you manage the whole process? What challenges do you think you may have to address? The next bit of this states, once the students complete activity 1, they should consider protection of themselves and their colleagues. They should provide an outline plan of action in the activity. So the point now is activity 2 is about health and safety, protection, and this will come into a couple of areas. The obviously exposure of the deceased might have been there for some time. From a hygiene point of view, there could be actually being down in a grave 5 o'clock in the morning, depending on, again, if it's council or if it's churchyard, who'll be doing that.
And we met all the council grave diggers there. There must have been about half a dozen of them.
Yeah. As I say, was it Colton as well?
Yeah.
Again, the difficulty is getting the actual coffin out of the grounds. So from a safety point of view, the actual practical elements of getting straps underneath, if you can do that well.
And the coffin was the one just in.
The MDF was in there, it was.
That was an American casket.
Oh, was it? Was it all intact still, was it?
He'd been buried 18 months prior. The shape it was still there, but it's starting to go. Yeah.
The one I did at Coles, it was the bits of it there, so the deceased was exposed. He was probably.
What was the reason?
So interestingly, I spent a few hours with the family going through all the paperwork, going through everything with them, and making sure that the reason was really clear. They moved to Bridgnorth from Birmingham area, and they wanted their son or her son. She's now in a same-sex relationship now. She was. The boys' dads had gone separate ways in a new relationship, and they moved here on a new life here. They wanted to bring the son from the Birmingham area over here. So I said, well, I'm not sure that'd be a good enough reason to allow it, but we'll go through it and see what they come back with. Sent it all off, and they came back, the Home Office did, and said, we need permission from the dad to do this. So I said, well, he's gone off the map here, so can't find the dad.
Really?
Yeah. As the mum told me, we can't find him, we don't know where he lives. So I've spent ages, loads of time crawling around to various people. What did I do? A lot of research, trying to find him, going through her, and what we could do to try and get around it. Spoke on the phone all the time to the Home Office saying there's no way I can get around it. Anyway, it came down to the end. was here one night thinking, I thought, you know what, just try and put his name on Facebook. And he popped up on Facebook straight away. And I was like, wow. So I called the mum, said, man, you won't believe this. I found him, he's on Facebook. And he works at Dogs Kennels in Manchester. So it's definitely him. Well, all the information you've given me. And she's like, oh, John, I am sorry. I told you a lie. I knew where he was. But I know he won't approve it. I was like, oh, what did you tell me? Like hours of my life.
You was like staying up at night trying to think how to find this person.
Yeah.
About to contact Davina McCall.
I was fuming. So I said to her as well, do you want me to contact you? No, I have to leave it, John. I was like, okay, thanks for all that. And then about, no exaggeration, a month later, I got a letter from the Philip Dunn MP, South Shropshire MP. And he said basically he has pushed it through, he's overridden the whole thing. Here's the license, go ahead. Yeah.
God.
Oh, did anybody let the dad know that he'd been moved?
Well, this is
Yeah, for sure. Because it's your, yeah.
You wouldn't be around there.
But then again, if the grave owner moves the grave owner,
You need permission from both parents. That was the thing, legally. I thought I was saying, well, can we get around it?
Well, I think that should be legal, yeah. You know, because what if he goes to the old cemetery now? Visit his son and he ain't there.
yeah,
A bit hard.
it's pretty hard.
That's what I did. I went over to Coleshill and I even put like signs on telephone
Did ya?
on everyone's grave saying, Dad, please contact me. I'm just to speak to you. All this stuff.
What a good person you are trying to come up. I didn't want to go that far, but yeah.
So so the Philip John MP, he approved it and it took place quite quickly.
And did anything ever come back from him, from the dad for you?
Yes.
And how long ago was that?
Is your name and number still on the old grave?
Forget that. Philip John MP, yeah, his name.
How long ago was
That
that?
was probably 7 or 8 years ago. It was.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
surely something will come back by now.
I thought so. I did see them on in Britain North occasionally. So.
I do.
Hi, John.
Look at you, say,
Yeah.
I am a liar. Yes, I am.
Good morning.
Bye.
So that was an interesting one. And we moved in, as Greg said, their situation, first thing in the morning. So it's still quite dark. And then.
Well, ours was the lights of sun, so.
Okay.
Everyone was on it.
Okay. I do.
We did one in Lockerbie to start with.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What time is that?
So we left Link
Yeah.
at
I
12,
think it's got about 6 in the morning.
Okay.
and we met the sheriff and the grave digger, again, it was like an army grave digger.
Yeah.
And that was all sheeted off, and
Yeah.
that's all
Yeah.
Screen.
way at lights on. And they just really, we left the car when we were just like, all right, see you later, go get some breakfast, and then come back to us, that's what he said, so we did.
Yeah.
See, ours wasn't tented off at all. Even though it was on 6 o'clock in the morning, it was like this outside.
Was it closed at the cemetery? Was it closed?
It was closed,
Oh,
but
yeah.
Because overlooking.
yeah, Beacon Hill, yeah, because it was up in the section at the top, you know, you go
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
you
top
can
left.
see it all.
I mean, the houses there, you know, they getting up to garbage channel, what's going on there? They'll be able to see it in full,
Yeah.
full glow.
It's surprised that it's still interesting. Craig, any experiences?
I did a double one in Cotswold.
Double.
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 It was in the paper.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you people have one copy?
No.
Watch it.
Mum and daughter.
What was the reason behind that, Craig?
Yeah, you could see it from the surface.
What?
You could see her from the surface.
Coffin.
There's a second deceased.
So it's just so shallow, the grave.
Yeah, so one of the family went and was like,
Really?
person.
You could actually see it.
Yeah, the coffin, yeah, kisses.
So
Was
just
this
literally-
when, was this when the second interment took place?
After the second term.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was to flag it, I think.
Yeah, basically. Grave digger, playing the previous grave digger and everything else, so yeah. That's buzzed out and put them into a new grave. And the grave digger didn't listen to the environmental health and didn't shore it up.
Yeah.
So that collapsed and you took out a whole row.
Oh, God, you never have any luck, do you? It's always got a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Pass them on the course for experience.
Took 4 graves out.
So you take them out, do you mean, like?
They were all collapsed, yeah.
Right, so we had to sort all of that out, plus all the heads.
That's St Nicholas, that's all.
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was it down the bottom?
Yes.
Because they're all
The
quite
grave
like
diggers and the funeral directors got blamed for the after effects of the grave collapsing, even though everybody was saying.
They are quite solid together, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
I did very well.
Yeah.
Going, yeah,
Yeah, right on top of it. But you were in the newer section, weren't you?
right, yeah, right down the bottom, yeah.
So, yeah.
So where did they get moved to?
We had to take, right down the bottom.
To the new section?
Yeah, by the fence line. That's where they are now, yeah. So they got moved like 4 or 5 rows
Yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah.
And then that grave got reused after it was filled in and left to settle.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, but I was there like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Didn't get home until, we got them back to Jennings's at about 2, 3 o'clock.
Right.
And then went back. One was in the winter.
What about the coffins, the songs to your side, they fell in, did they?
Yeah.
What condition were they in?
Their coffins were still intact, look at
Right, that's good news.
So, it was kind of.
So,
Distressing though, distressing.
so you exhumed two, so the older grave, the eldest internment, what was left? So what do you do in that case then, just like,
Take coffin in the
just basically scoop what you can and put it in a new coffin?
No, you've got to keep going until everything's fit. Everything's
Everything's
so marked off.
And then does someone have to come and confirm they're happy with what you've done?
environmental health.
God.
Do you have to place everything on machine phones and clothing?
Yeah,
That's why the soil attached to the coffin has to go in.
Yeah, so the coffin we took out of the the casket, I mean, it was like a wardrobe, the one that we took, all the sleeves.
So it's all,
Yeah, because as I say, the one we did, you don't even bury 18, so the casket was still intact. It was on its way going.
yeah,
And I just remember the stench was horrific.
Was it really bad? Yeah. Yeah, you don't think about that, the smell, you do, yeah, you don't even think about that on top.
The white, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's that, that's how you did. But the first one went straight from coffee. Same thing here, but obviously because she hadn't been buried that long, but the collapsing damaged the coffee.
Yeah.
Filled with soil, so then that's just lift everything.
Did you have a voice that out, or do you just want that part?
Manpower, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose with the churchyard as well.
Yeah.
The council churchyard, yeah, because I remember, because Beacon was more around to city council, and they had all shoring and there's the crane there.
Same as the South
Yeah.
also.
God.
And what, was the family there for you doing it or
No,
not?
no, closed everything off.
Did that?
Yeah, everything. We took it in ships, so we could go down to the graveside and half down there, and then we stand on that gate. Top of the.
I was just thinking about trips going back and
Yeah.
forth, yeah.
Yeah, so you stood there and.
Well, it's a long way down, isn't it?
Probably, yeah, no, pop on, sorry.
Would you always have to put him in a new coffin?
So it's a new coffin.
Always, even if they've been in there for like 4 weeks?
It's
That's mine.
a question.
It depends if the backfill has damaged the coffin.
Yeah.
So even if it's a brand new coffin, but the backfill, it was a grade for 3, let's say, and it
If
just.
they comes out and it's perfect, you can just
I don't want a raised lid. Nobody should have a raised lid.
I'm sure it's in the environmental health regulations, isn't it?
That it has to be a new-
It's got to
I mean, I
go.
was started being sold. I always remember that. I think it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't like one of the.
Interesting.
And,
The first
I just want to take a point, guys. Take a point here. I guess we'll get to your point, yeah.
The one that I did, same as Craig, double and a actually casket. The reason behind it was I did the funeral arrangements for the deceased, which just passed away. Should have been a grave for 3. When the grave was bodied, there wasn't enough room. the second burial that had taken place, they hadn't gone down far enough to allow for the third space.
So they all wanted to be
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, so they all wanted to be together, but the first burial that took place was 1957. Second one was 1968. The second coffin was in bits, but the first coffin was absolutely solid. It was still intact.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Solid oak coffin that was still in full.
Where was that?
Rycroft in Walsall,
Oh,
was
right.
that-
but it was consecrated ground as well, so we had to apply for diocese authorisation.
Oh, yeah.
From the bishop to say, or the faculty to say, yeah, you can.
God.
issue.
And whose fault was that then? Was the
That
family
was-
not have paid because they can't get through all?
It cost over £9,000 for the exhumation, and the council had to cover
I was
every
going
penny.
to say, I
because it was
thought
their
they would
fault.
have done, yeah. Yeah.
So there was records that it was meant to be for 3.
Yeah, I had the original grade.
Oh, no way.
But, in all all, still tried to dispute it.
Yeah.
So we had like, God knows how many meetings down in Willenhall Lawn with Christine and her crew,
A bad day off this side, isn't it?
yeah.
It's a bad thing.
Okay, so Unit 12, the outcome 1 is why a request may be made for exhumation of human remains. So we've touched on this already a few times now. My case is going to an extreme circumstance, which I don't believe is on here, but so identify a body. So there's an issue of actually knowing who that person is. To transfer a body from one grave to another, there needs to be more than that, but to cremate a body, to recover jewellery, documents or other artefacts, the purpose of holding a first or further inquest, for purposes of health to enable road schemes to proceed as part of criminal proceedings. At the NFD conference weekend, I sat on banquet next to the gentleman that gave a talk about exhumation. And during his talk on stage, I had to question him because he was talking about exhumations as like just transactions, and like it's mentioned about how ASDA they have to exhume 1,000 bodies to allow an ASDA there. And it's just like a transaction. But my question is like, is it really necessary? Well, ASDA goes somewhere else. It's almost like, well, we should move them. And as he said to me, it comes down to money, John.
Money talk.
Money talk.
So as to pay the families?
I'm sorry.
So as to pay the families for the
Correct.
dead bodies?
That's what I agree. But like, us just paying the families for that, aren't they? They're paying the council for that. The council will be taking all that money. So it's almost like the council selling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people's loved ones.
That's it.
Even that's that, correct.
It's horrendous. Absolutely horrendous.
Very sad.
What,
Yeah.
what are they? I don't know who you said who'd done it.
Guys, on Rianne, your experience, Rianne?
In the few sheets of ice, about to start standing around getting digital.
I know. Yeah, it was about 18 years ago, so I don't really remember much about it. Lots of health and safety in the council and just the waterways and yeah.
Why, Rianne? Why they wanted to do it?
He sold his house and wanted to take his wife with him.
My question about this is, and the one from Bridge North is, what if they move again in 2 years' time? Go down to Cornwall. You can't just keep moving deceased. I just find it's not a good enough reason, but I suppose
It's not very respectful, really.
It's their son. You shouldn't pass comments into that situation, but on the other hand, what if they move again?
You better keep the ashes of time, in a casket. Or
Yeah.
at home, and then-
Put them in a plant pot and then just keep moving the plant pot we are. Yeah.
Correct.
Again, like without getting too deep and heavy, is this again about our relationship with death almost?
Yeah.
Yeah. Separation anxiety. And all that.
Is it we need more education about it? Yeah. Let's pause that on there. That's a whole session, that is. So we're all happy then with the text and answers about why exhumation is requested. Happy with that. Is there anything there that doesn't stand out? Which isn't good to cremate a body.
But they don't actually allow you to exhume just to get belongings from the deceased.
Sure. So that'll be a case of if if we have accidentally put down
Okay.
Mum's wedding ring.
Not if they want to get £1 million out of the coffin.
It's better than that.
Yeah.
There was a very expensive piece of jewellery apparently that got buried with a lady, but in the will it should have been left to.
Oh, God, yeah, I suppose even though you got to go by the will, ain't you?
Yeah, sure.
There's something
Sure.
wrong.
To go to that which go.
Because you went to middle answers now, I'm having the will.
Yeah.
I suppose it comes down to like legal, and then it'll come down to cost, won't it?
Yeah.
I suppose it all comes down to money, who will pay for it.
So you can go, well, how much is the ring worth, how much is.
Imagine if they'd gone through all that, though, wasn't there?
I know. But isn't that how they found out what Harold Shipman was doing, what he was doing by exhuming one of his patients?
No, because he forged no crime forms, wasn't it?
No, but wasn't he was killing off his patients, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he was getting them all to be cremated, so there was no
Yeah.
evidence. And then one wanted to be buried, so then they exhumed the body, did a PM and noticed that he was killing them off with
One of
something.
his victims' daughters was.
And that's why-
Solicitor. She picked something up and she was like, I think what it was actually is in that case. Is
Was he
I think she was
overdosed?
due to be buried and then the will got really crudely amended. And it was like, the will was amended saying, basically, I want to be cremated and I now want to leave everything to Harold Shipman. He's such a clever guy. But it was really crudely written and it's really obvious, you know. It wasn't her. Their daughter kind of picked up on it, so just by chasing the estate, they found mass murder.
Yeah.
250, weren't it?
How many?
250 was.
That he killed?
Yeah,
The youngest of his victims was about 8. I think.
Oh.
about 250 they reckon, but they never get a number on it.
We had a set of.
I think it's more than
forms through our.
It's probably was.
Mantle at work, one of our rangers, he had a set of our shipments forms through, and he found a problem with them and he called up. And the lady said, well, we want him back, and Michael could tell straight away something was wrong, then it was only a few days later that all the story blew open and that was, yeah. He's in Manchester,
It was, yeah.
And that's the reason why the two sets of crime forms was
Well,
implemented.
the
They
amount
were
of value,
it.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, no, yeah, and then they brought the second one back.
He was from,
because you know, Harold Shipman actually, I think he lost his licence to practice because he got addicted to prescription medication. And he was stealing from the I don't know if it's a hospital pharmacy or the practice pharmacy. And the quarter, he had to get rehab. And then also, I think he could have had to repay the debt to the NHS.
Just this while he was looking after people, was it?
This was younger in his career.
Oh, okay.
And then after he'd gone through a time of rehab, and I think he had to pay back the finances that he'd stolen just by stealing all the expensive medication. Then after a few years, he got reinstated.
Wow. What shambles. Okay, so another outcome 2 is the purpose and regulations relevant to a donation. So I'll just go through this now. So under the Church of England, Measure 2014, Section 25, the Burial Act 1857 was amended to simplify who should issue an exhumation licence, depending on whether the deceased or cremated remains were interred in consecrated or unconsecrated land. This means exhumations from lands subject to the authority of the Church of England will need the Church's permission. In this case, a faculty or the approval of the proposal under the care of Cathedrals Measure 2011. This would include consecrated grounds and cemeteries, and exhumations from lands which is not subject to the Church of England's authority or the licence from the Secretary of State. This can be done by the completing of an application issued by the Ministry of Justice. That's who I was dealing with for that young chap from Coleshill back to Bridgnorth, Ministry of Justice. And they weren't very good, is what my experience of them was. The coroner requires an exhumation. This would fall under Schedule 5 of the Coroners and Justice Act 2009. For multiple exhumations required by a local authority or the Department for Transport, for example, the town and country planning, in brackets, churches, places of worship and burial grounds, regulations of 1950 would apply. So this also applies to HS 200 variants. There's a lot of exhumations taking place at the moment, mass.
I disagree with that.
Mass exhibition.
No.
Mass, huge,
Yeah,
huge.
and at the cost of them.
Oh, yeah, the petrol.
And what about the families, what's the relatives? Don't have to stand on it.
Because it's a legal act, you can carry out one for the development of transportation.
Cruel. But you don't, let's face it, we don't explain that to families that, you know, in the future, it's just one of the government money to make a road.
You could actually argue, they could argue, so Bridge North 99 years. So effectively after that time, they could put a road through, and you can't object it after that time.
Yeah.
What happens if the immediate family left?
Well, again, after that time, by law, it doesn't mean anything.
Even if you got direct family left, you were doing for a while.
PR wise, it'd be a disaster, but from a law point of view,
You've already.
got it.
Yeah.
Isn't there another section as well that if for so many years flowers are placed on a grave, that can be deemed as like an unintended, it's
I
an
don't think so. I
unintended.
think it's down to that, when the application will state how long you had that ownership for the right of burial in that grave.
Because of the cemetery. Greg and Joe, do you know where it is? Bob Dudley, but it's actually not a cemetery now. It's like a piece of grassland. Trying to think, remember these in Dudley. But in the corners, there's still some small gravestones because people are still putting flowers on there. Yeah. That's it, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a church that's up, yeah.
that's it,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's probably,
Oh,
yeah, you know what you're saying.
That's probably, I imagine, certainly on the surface, I'd imagine that's probably a PR point of saying, so someone's probably said, hang on, contact my auntie's grave is there, I get put flowers there, they probably put some, okay. Well, if you want to come attend it, you'll have, they probably did it afterwards, I imagine. They're probably waiting
Yeah.
to not take flowers down there. But
would they have to acknowledge, do they have to put it in the paper, where do they put a notice that they're going to do that if your loved ones are in the grave?
so if you can't find, so that case that I had, they were going to be comfortable with putting it in the newspaper. I think it did, the newspaper as well. So what happened, but yeah, you have to show the intent that you're doing all you can to let people know so they can object. But I'm not sure how many weeks that is in the newspaper. I'm sure it'll be in it.
How would
Right.
you react if somebody rang here and said someone could mess with one of our graves? I think someone could be done.
You had that.
Well, the vicar has, yeah. And all he's done is a grave digger and filled all of it. Being proper.
Well, so there's usually a reason why. The weekend, this gentleman who I was sat next to said to me that they did questionnaires in a certain council cemetery about the reuse of graves, by the way, pick one. And the question was, are you happy for us to reuse graves? And he said 95% were, yes, we're happy for you to reuse graves. But in the bottom of it, there's a majority of them had put on the bottom of it in pen, just please don't use ours. Don't use our grave.
I can't imagine what it'd be like if you didn't hear us.
The only way you could do it is.
Not really.
So you can use it, you can use it, but yeah, great idea, love it, let's do it. Just my mum's grave. Do that one, it makes no sense at all.
The only way you can do it is sometimes they have the large memorial walls. So like in it, I think in some places in Italy and some of the Greek islands, they dig the coffin on, and then they exhume the coffin, and then they put all the bones after, I think it could be like 25 or 50 years, into like ammunition crates. And then they put all the bones, and it's quite respectfully done, all the bones are put into the crate, and then the crate slid into a large wall.
Okay.
And then you have a plaque on the wall, so Mr. Bloggs now lies here after 50 years. And then
Take up a much smaller
space.
I mean, the thing is with, at least in our town, I don't know what they can do. I mean, they have done before, they put some retirement flats and they dug up, and they exhumed some graves, but where the cemeteries are now,
You
You've
just
got-
had a miss, oh, you've replied, sorry.
you've got one cemetery which is like all uphill and downhill, and you really couldn't build anything at all, like, and then the other one's just clay. So unless you're gonna build a sliding house, it's maybe that's not a bad idea, because although it makes bad graves clay, it also makes bad building sites, I suppose. So it's like, not great graves, but you're unlikely they're gonna pursue you for that land in the future.
I think it all boils down to the fact that it's been such a long time. If it was a grave that you just buried 12 months ago, I don't think they'd even entertain the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, Sainsbury's and Wolverhampton, you know, that car park.
Hmm.
That was a
The
big
big one in
That was,
the city, yeah.
Was he?
of course it was, yeah.
No, all that car park was great.
It was a great, yeah.
No one talks about it now because 90% of those people that are in there are from 60, 70. yeah.
Craig's right.
Yeah, that was nice.
Digital
Great,
some
no.
lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hall.
Oh,
Yeah.
didn't it?
It was great. I've heard that before. Yeah, I transferred, yeah, from there to Danescourt, I think. What would be
Online guys.
Yeah, I've heard that story before, sometimes.
So, yeah, but because it's such a long time.
So online guys, Craig's point is basically a lot of places, like place in Wolverhampton, which is a shopping centre now, that was a church and a burial ground.
My
But
grandmother's
the point is, over a certain amount of time, people forget and they move on, and it's a case of that. So Craig's got a valid point, really. Time is the key for developers to do what they want to do, which is sad. But
You never hear any of this around us, you never hear, do you?
I don't know, you probably been
There's
surprised.
still a lot around, John. Don't be stiff.
Yeah.
There's still a lot around.
We had a telephone with that. We had a lovely roundabout.
We printed thousands and thousands of bumper stickers, and everybody drove around with bumper stickers that said, "We're cut free roundabouts and free."
It's even camped out on it, yourself and demolishing a roundabout, so what chance have they got in a graveyard?
They camped out on it. It was a massive protest the first night. They started digging it Sunday night. It was outrageous. Everybody got together. You're like 20,000
You seen
people.
the film Hot Full?
It's terrible roundabout.
What's so good about the roundabout?
I've never done it, it was just a roundabout. Yeah,
Would everything gone like,
It won't even allow
gone mad if this roundabout like is gone?
in Sugar Street, the little village, don't even allow street lights in villages, Rob.
Online.
It's your honest, you've never seen nothing like
It's
it.
a beauty.
I'm a councillor in that area.
My dad is on the council. My dad, yeah. It's generational.
Okay, Scotland then. There is provision in the Burial Cremation Scotland Act 2016. The Scottish government make regulations around exhumation procedure. But currently the government have only issued precise guidance, which should be followed and which begins with the deceased person's next of kin contacting a solicitor. Northern Ireland, the burial ground regulations, Northern Ireland, 1992 states, a person should not cause or permit a body or the remains of a body other than the cremated remains to be removed from one place to of burial to another, or to be exhumed unless that person first obtains the written consent of the department and carried out the removal of exhumation in accordance with Part 3 of Schedule 1. So Part 3 of Schedule 1 states the removal or exhumation of a body or the remains of a body should be conducted with due care and attention to decency under the supervision of an environmental health officer appointed by the council and in accordance with such conditions as he or she may, after consultation with the Director of Public Health, impose with respect to matters affecting or likely to affect public health. The Subdivisional Commander of Police Service of Northern Ireland's subdivision in which the burial ground is situated shall be notified of the date and time of the exhumation by the person who has applied for written consent of the department. So
To remember this.
I know.
it's basically just an understanding about what's going to happen then. It's similar in both ways. Different people be involved in those. You're going to need to know that and what should be exact. not word for words, just who's involved in the different countries.
Dan, what is your pass rate? Because
What's your, this exam's never been done, has it?
It's not a time around here. Laura, what's your pass rate?
Wow, that's inspirational.
Well, Laura.
It was more, well, Shane.
Yeah, well,
This
I need to see the roundabout.
So this was the roundabout. That's the roundabout in blue.
hold it up, hold it up.
I mean, it's a lovely roundabout.
Honestly, if only the job allowed change.
Next to the
That's all.
tallest war memorial in the country. Next to the tallest war memorial.
It is a good roundabout.
It was.
That was
Oh, it's not.
when people were camping out on it. It's actually a guy wearing a coffin, which you can just about make out. Which the definitely It was really.
They supplied it like.
That's the
The
last one.
internet where that road.
Okay, so limit outcome 3 is who can formally request exhumation. So who is allowed to put in the request? So the England and Wales, consent of the next of kin is normally required unless under exceptional circumstances. That's back to my case, and that word exceptional circumstances. E.g., they are unable to give consent through illness or frailty, or the whereabouts of the next of kin are not known. The purposes of the exhumation licence, order and kinship is detailed below. So the spouse or civil partner, all children and both parents, all brothers and sisters, all grandchildren and grandparents. So everybody's equal, everyone needs to be involved in it to gain that permission. Again, my example is a great example because it shouldn't have been allowed really. Note, a divorced partner or unmarried partner is not considered next of kin. Okay. The coroner may order an exhumation of the deceased person who is buried within the area where it appears necessary for the body to be examined. This may be for the purpose of holding an inquest into the person's death. That's Shipman again.
It's sad, yeah.
Who? Savile.
Yeah.
So I think everybody said seven.
I don't think.
just remove his headstone.
Yeah.
No, they didn't exhume him.
No, just a bed.
They took the headstone off, didn't they?
Or
Did they, why?
Because it was,
get vandalised to us.
she was getting
Where was it?
vandalised, and they said, the family said it was out of respect for the victims.
Yeah.
And it said on his headstone too, like, he wanted to face a certain way to the sun or something.
It's great. It's
And his
not been
grave
laid
is
like
like that, yeah, so he could face to the sun.
The next part of the says, or for any criminal proceedings in respect of the death. A coroner's warrant to exhume would be required in this circumstance. The local authority, the Department of Transport, the incumbent of the church. The cost of an exhumation can be, yes. Okay, so there we go. Memorial, so the cost can be included there. Memorial, removal of memorial stone. FD's charged, including the cost of the new coffin or cremate remains. Cemetery fees and charges for exhumation and reinterment. Okay. Rhiannon?
Hiya. I've recently had an inquiry to exhume a baby.
Okay.
Now, the parents were not married. So in this thing, it says normally required is the spouse, children, brothers, sisters, grandparents and all that. But then the divorced or a married partner is not considered next of kin. So would the mother have the right to do that without the father's permission?
Yeah, it would still be the mother and father. What it's saying is a divorcee wouldn't be able to request an exhumation.
Of their ex-wife, for instance.
Yeah, yeah. So, but for your situation, both parents will be equal. Got to be equal.
Even though they weren't married?
Even though they're not married, still mother
Right.
and father. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good question. So in Scotland, the next of kin is usually required to apply. However, there are exceptional circumstances, again, there's flaky words, as to why the next of kin cannot apply. The cemetery or sheriff will determine whether the warrant to disinter can be issued. Again, it'd be a case by case, won't it? They'll be looking at it and seeing what the reasons are. I don't like it. I think I like clear rules. Just give us clear rules to follow. It's clean. I think it just there's room for interpretation. There's room for like manipulating the system almost.
Because it's so emotionally charged.
Yeah.
That's why people feel as if
They have to try and make exceptions like that, and people did that more.
Yeah, it is. It shouldn't have been. It shouldn't have been allowed. One. Yeah. Northern Ireland. The consent of the next of kin is normally required. Okay, same as either two, unless under exceptional circumstances. So this is the same again. The Northern Ireland is the same as England and Wales. A divorced partner or unmarried partner is not considered next of kin. So yeah, so your question there, Rihanna, just confirms it's only applies when it's me trying to bury my ex-wife, which obviously doesn't work. Can't do that.
Just on this, there's actually one missing off there.
Go on.
Church warden. Church warden has as much say as the priest,
Yes.
isn't there?
Yeah, or more so than the priest.
Well, definitely a Russian, because it's a priest.
Well, I think it'll still be the vicar or the priests that actually the
Part of
you go to the
Rural
rural
dean.
dean, don't you?
yeah. So I think it'll
There's
be,
no priest present.
even though that's correct what you're saying, it will still be that the incumbents who will actually have to sign it off.
I've signed it off.
Yeah.
Well, if a warden says no, it's normally no, isn't it?
Yeah, but if the one says no, that'll go. The vicar's like the vicar's the mouthpiece. Yeah, the vicar's the mouthpiece, but the church warden's like you say running it.
Yeah.
Okay. All happy with that?
Yeah.
Ready be on.
Charles, how are we meant to remember all of it?
It's great thoughts out. Bullet points.
Flashcards.
We're gonna have to start like ABC, we're gonna have to start again.
We may well be ordering Amazon the good name.
Oh, God.
Okay, learner outcome 4 is understand the conditions for a warrant to exhume. So this is again technical now. Authorities that enable an exhumation in England and Wales. Coroner's warrant to exhume, Schedule 5 of the Coroner's Justice Act 2009 states. A senior coroner may order the exhumation of a person's body if subparagraph 2 or 3 applies. So 2 then, this subparagraph applies if, let's just go through it and we'll break down afterwards, if that's okay, because as I say, it's a lot of text. The body is buried in England and Wales, whether or not within the coroner area for which the coroner is appointed, and the coroner thinks it's necessary for the body to be examined. So again, we've already covered that, haven't we? The coroner has the right to remove. Paragraph 3 states the subparagraph applies if the body is buried within the coroner area for which the body is appointed, and the coroner thinks it's necessary for the body to be examined for the purpose of any criminal proceedings that have been instituted or are contemplated in respect of the death of the person whose body it is, or the death of another person who died in circumstances connected with that person. So again, it's more detail about why the coroner can exhume a body.
Can it be used to bring charges against somebody that's passed away?
Just
Yeah.
that's it there. As well as that point there, if someone else's death is the result of that person.
Right, so they can use it for DNA and stuff. Yeah, that's interesting.
That must be a terrible thing to tell the family, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Don't know, because if they're involved,
But if they weren't and didn't know anything about it,
Oh. okay, I see what you mean, yeah. Okay, Ministry of Justice. Again, let's go through this, break it down. Under the Burial Act of 1857, Section 25, as amended, of course, a licence is required to exhume a body or cremate remains from the unconsecrated lands. Both the application for a licence and attached guidance notes are available at the following link. Authorities that enable an exhumation in Scotland a licence issued by the Sheriff's Court, and ecclesiastical faculty. We've covered this already, haven't we? We have covered this. Authorities that enable an excavation in Northern Ireland's current law relating to authorisation to exhume from council-owned burial grounds states that according to Regulation 12 of the Burial Grounds Regulations, Northern Ireland 1992, a person shall not cause or permit a body to be removed from one place of burial to another or to be exhumed unless that person first obtains the written consent of the department. In this case, the department means Department for Communities. The department will require some information and documentation from the applicants and details of the deceased. Applicants are required to complete an application for consent for the removal of human remains from council-owned burial grounds, Northern Ireland, before sending the form to the relevant council for completion of Part B. Okay, we've discussed that already. There's just a bit more detail about what happens after they've applied them.
So does that mean then, John, because in brackets it says other than cremated remains, so in Northern Ireland, you don't need that licence for cremated remains, is that what it says? Or am I reading it the wrong way?
That's what I've read it like too.
Yeah, different than for correct remains, which I'm sure we'll come into in a moment. Possibly. Any questions on that before we move on from there? We've covered it already, just the next layer, isn't it? That's how I feel with that. Then outcome 5, how my voice is going. Understand the ecclesiastical faculty stipulations regarding the removal of deceased from consecrated grounds. So we'll go through again England and Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland. We will just discuss activity 3 quickly. Activity 3 then. Discuss with your employer how to create a risk assessment, your favourite thing, schedule in preparation for a request for exhumation. The next part in your sheet, which has been emailed to you, the student should consider the detail of the risk assessment and what needs to be recorded in preparing for an exhumation. Consider the potential hazards and the control measures to put in place to eliminate these risks. They should consider internal factors such as staffing and health and safety, and external factors to the business such as agencies, the Associated Church, environmental protection, character, and public health. With this bit now, the 3 things to consider as well: impact of your own role, the team, and the business, not community.
Not community.
I know the thought on that really.
Should we just put it on just in case?
I'll just bring it. We don't need to, but just put it into that business
So it's business own role.
and team. Yeah, and you have these sheets already by email.
Thank you.
So let's go back then. So risk assessment schedule in preparation for a request for exhumation. The student should consider the detail of the risk assessment and what needs to be recorded in preparing for. So, okay, it's a to-do list, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
What we
Should we just put it out as if we're pretending to do one, or just as if we would do one?
My idea would be is do one, do risk assessment as if you get asked next week.
Okay.
And that's really might be useful for you as well when it comes in. What you'll do when that call comes through from a risk assessment point of view, health and safety, who's required, staffing, third parties. So as I say, it's quite, again, it's quite useful for your business. I'm guessing at the moment, when a call comes through for exhumation, we'll be all thinking, what happens again? What do we do again? Who do I speak to? So it's there, folder out. But
Sorry, called the wrong
what uses?
Is that what happens though? You phone the signal back? Come here and think, wow.
Antennas.
Smoke
Hey, we still got beacons. Honestly, you lied to him at Jubilee, we still got beacons.
Yeah, I got.
I didn't know what you said. How did you travel here?
It was a bullet point. You shouldn't mention carts to me, horseshoe carts.
Like carts.
I do.
Okay, let outcome 5.
These are simple. Raw sausage and a good
I
card.
know, raw sausage, not only Man United players are.
Have you watched the rounded up? That moves.
Right, are you happy to read this again? This the outcome 5. Is it useful? Are you thinking, John, give it a rest? Is it actually go through it? Is it okay, yeah?
I think it's good because we pick up on like
Yeah,
discrepancies.
yeah.
Okay.
Could cause trouble.
So, learner outcome 5 is it is an offence to remove any human remains from consecrated ground unless the following is complied with. The body or remains is or are removed in accordance with the faculty granted by the consistory court of the diocese. The body or remains is or are removed in accordance with the approval of the proposal under the Care Cathedrals Measures 2011 by the Cathedrals Fabric Commission for England or a Fabric Advisory Committee. If an exhumation of a churchyard is requested, the incumbents of the churchyard should initially be contacted for guidance on the procedure to follow to obtain a faculty licence. A fee will apply. So as Joe said as well, just bear in mind the incumbents, that'll be the whole church. We get an exhibition in there. I'm guessing the church wardens will be literally bouncing off the walls, won't they?
Yeah.
Who is it? Why is it? They'll be all over it.
Big time.
The war graves. The website of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission can be found here on that link. Contact details are available through the site. Any inquiries regarding an exhumation from the war grave should initially be made through the CWGC. That's the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. Believe that it's the CWGC that will be responsible for moving deceased from abroad back to the UK as well for fallen service personnel. Town and country planning. For multiple exhumations where relatives or representatives of the deceased person are not involved, generally a single licence will suffice for each burial ground. So that gentleman that I was met last week, there's multiple burials he did, just one licence for hundreds of people.
And I presume that's an expensive licence.
I think that's what it costs. It'd be a lot. It'd be, I imagine, like a set fee. There won't be individual fees, one fee, one licence, one payment. Be a big payment. Rihanna, is your hand still up, Rihanna?
What did they do with those thousands of people? Did they rebury or cremate them?
That was a question that was asked, and they reburied them. Yeah, we buried them, and they paid for all the burials as well.
So, like in another council cemetery, or?
I can't remember where he said they buried them at, but I'm sure the council cemetery. And they, as I say, they paid for it, so it was very expensive.
Well, surely they'd have to create a new cemetery if you're burying hundreds of people.
Matters, isn't it? Yeah,
You think really you would just create one new one or cremate?
the obvious.
So I'm trying to think what they did with what they did. I don't think they had separate graves, whether it was just
A mass grave.
a mass burial.
It might be that, yeah.
I can't remember.
A mass burial sounds like the obvious thing to do. Not from a, obviously respect point, it's shocking, but
Well, there's doing that in COVID abroad, wasn't there? For a lot of
New York, they were
places.
doing
Yeah,
that.
New York, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Ireland was separate, wasn't
And that was it. How was that?
Yeah, it's always been used for like black paupers graves and things.
it? Yeah,
And I think it's been used, but it's still been used quite a lot even before COVID.
yeah.
When that started all happening, then it
Right.
really swung into full effect.
yeah, good question, Rianne. It was definitely burial that he said, but the details, he didn't go into the details of it. But I've got his details, I can contact him I can always speak to him to find out. Where were we?
Was that guy at Stockport Council that you knew, Sam? Or was he in charge of that? Backland tagging, yeah.
He was part of the
He was a
council.
horrible council body.
Yes.
Specialised in
No, well, what it was, I can't remember what his actual job was within the council. He just said like a regular council's job. No, but what it was is it was if there was ever like an air disaster. I can't remember what happened when they had to bring this in. I can't remember what it was, but it was something that happened. So they had like something like disaster committee, and in his words, not mine, my responsibility was bagging and tagging.
That's what he was. He probably
That's
been
what he
paid
was.
50 grand a year to sit on the side of Manchester Council.
And he was
on the off chance of playing
it was just like a civil
games.
servant, wasn't he? But that was that was just what he would have to do if there was some kind of massive emergency. I don't know what happened when he was on holiday. I don't know if he had a backup. Yeah, if he was a backup bagger and tag on. Yeah, it wasn't. Didn't seem like there's a lot of
And what was
emotion
that
going
for?
on. So if there's like an air disaster, if there's like some kind
Well,
of
there was
massive
one set stuff, weren't there? Plane set.
So he was on standby,
Yeah.
bag and tag.
So my question is then, where was this guy?
Yeah.
And all his colleagues who do this all over the country, why were they taking charge of COVID?
Yeah.
No, well,
Where was their guidance for COVID?
well, this guy, he had a job within the council. He had like a job within the council. I don't know what he was doing.
Do you know what I mean? Like, these people who pay this money should be able to deal with disasters.
I don't know if he was getting, paid any extra for it because he was already like a civil servant or whatever for the council. And they said, if this happens, this is what you do. Is essentially what I got. But he did see there wasn't a lot of emotion there. He was pretty much just skin over wines and circuitry. I think.
Okay. So, before removing any human remains or disposing of any tombstone, monuments, or other memorial of the deceased person, Regulations 7 of the Town and Country Planning, Regulations 1950 requires the person whom the land is vested to publish in a local newspaper a notice of intention so to do at least once during each of 2 successive weeks with an interval between each publication of at least 6 days, and display a like notice in a conspicuous place in the burial grounds. Serve a like notice on the appropriate denomination authority. If the remains were interred in or the memorial placed on the land within 25 years prior to the date of the first publication of the said notice, serve a like notice on the personal representatives or next of kin of the deceased person. So back to the local newspaper then, we said about that before, well, in my case, it's stating here to do so at least once during each of the 2 successive weeks. How long? Between each publication. So twice, we're saying that.
So that's the councils that need to do that, not,
Councils.
really, we don't tell families that potentially this could happen down the line, do we?
No, but is there a need to tell them about this?
Yes, the vast majority of them would just be one junior.
Well, I mean, 25 years, prior to the date of the first one, ever said, okay, not 25 years, there's a lease.
No.
So can a leases be breached? If you give them 99 years, or can they be breached?
They can be breached, yes, they can be. So the coroner, authorities can, again, it all comes down to the, what's that wording? Extreme circumstances, what the purpose are.
I don't.
The trouble is, when you just say extreme circumstances, they can play that loosely, can't they?
Yeah.
It's not like
There's no rule.
They haven't said, right, in this circumstance, then we'll do it. You just say, well, whatever we deem is extreme.
The reality is, though, it's very original town cemetery. For a road or a train line to go through there, it's very, very, very unlikely, and that's all you can do, isn't it? So that's all you can say. Really, you can't guarantee it.
Would it change families' opinions
On
on
burial.
what they do if they know that they could have the
How-
potential of?
How far do you go? How far do you go? Yeah, that's a good point, though. You are right.
Well, people think that because you have people say, well, I own the grave, what should I pay for a memorial permit, for example, to the council? Well,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's the case. Is like how far you go. Again, this is extreme circumstances. It shouldn't happen. I suppose for the councils, the people that want to progress, like the transportation companies, to get out, isn't it? as it gets out there. In Scotland, in the case of any examinations required by a local authority for planning purposes, or, for example, the Department of Transport, the Town or Country Planning Act 1997 would apply. Section 197, subsection of the Act states, no authority shall be required for the removal and reinterment of any human remains or for the removal or disposal of any monuments. Northern Ireland, if an exhumation is required for a cemetery, or sorry, from a cemetery owned by a church authority, consent will need to be obtained from the church authority together with written authorization from the head of the environmental health of the local district council. Just thinking as well regarding like car parks. So if you're doing like a change of use, is it required then? So if I buy a house, I buy the church, and I want to turn the car park, I want to turn the churchyard where there's graves from ancient. I want to turn into a car park now for my family. Where does the land lie there?
So
You're allowed to do it, but it's just out near us.
Last case, you aren't you?
Yeah, there's a few little chapters like that around us. You would have to apply, I would have thought you.
Who'd you apply to? Is it
The church does it before itself, because you can't get planning on it as a house before.
Yeah.
That's it. Then. That's it.
The church does it itself, because they won't allow planning now, unless you've got adequate adequate parking for somebody outside, so they do it in-house before they put the church up for sale.
I get a higher price for it.
You see, and you can't get plans out unless you've got off-road parking. It'll do.
You know, get one, wouldn't you?
Church. Go, yeah. With enough going on.
That's planning.
That's what I'm not.
I've got plowing on the brain.
Okay.
Not that time.
Yeah.
I'm at the field.
The thing to remember here as well then, for exam, who's responsible for exhumation for war graves? It's a question that might come up.
Now, like on, I think Google.
I would have
That's
thought,
it. They've all just gone through. It's the Commonwealth War Graves Commission.
would they deal with, would they deal with the embassy? Of the people, so if it's Canadians, like in Buxton, where we've got that Lancaster man there.
Yeah.
There's a row of Canadian airmen. So technically, if they were to be repatriated, it'd be the Commonwealth Graves Commission would be in touch with the Canadian Embassy, would be, and they would do it together.
Yeah, just, I mean, I would imagine so. We only had that guy who came here to talk about the states, they wouldn't worry. They work with the embassy. That's what I was thinking. I know that's an extreme case, and that's more modern, but again, embassies.
Yeah, representation from that country. Okay. Right, so we're happy with that, happy with activity 3? All good? Online guys, happy? Heavy stuff, but let's just work through it. Okay, learner outcome 6 points. Okay, outcome 6. Okay, that's right. So 6.1 and 6.2, all it's the same titles for Scotland, Northern Ireland, and England and Wales. So this procedure and documentation relevant to exhumation of human remains. If you're happy, can we just all just read through this in our own heads? I think I'll just destroy you all accidentally if I read all
I was
that.
just thinking that there's a lot of information.
Yeah. Let's start 5-10 minutes now to read those 3 pages.
We just have a few minutes.
Yeah. Grab a cup of tea and then let's have 10 minutes to read that. Just digest it.
Do you know what I'm after doing that this morning?
Yeah.
Focus.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fried your ass.
Do you know what? I think it might have been better doing it the other way. You
Was
know?
it?
Yeah.
Does anyone else feel the same?
Yeah.
They're struggling
Yeah.
to focus. Do you know what I think it is though? It's the warm weather as well, isn't it?
It's a nuisance.
And I think I'm so focused now on,
Exam, you're scared. It's shaking up almost.
yeah.
I think finishing on the exam on a Saturday is just like.
No, I know, I'll get that, yeah.
That was my view.
Then
Everyone's
again,
like, "Oh, cheers, gone."
legislation on the.
Yeah, it's heavy, isn't it?
Yeah,
to
I'm
end
making
on
a coffee. From the coffee.
The coffee as well.
But, you know, I do think that we should do, especially the week before.
Yeah.
And
So
maybe do an hour a week on Teams or something, can't we?
Updates.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the plan was to do this out after this union, but I just thought.
I just feel like.
The way you would have done it.
That's
full on. That's full on.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because it's legislation and then all that, but I'm not kidding
I
you.
often say, if you want the rest of them, I will say to them, like,
Yeah,
well, the rest of them weren't too bad. That's very simple, I would say to them.
There's no creative freedom.
No.
It was just, I said, well,
I'm going to be the one.
yeah. Into campaign.
I'm glad you said so. But really, I'm just glad to have put your mouth. I was thinking exactly the same.
I just thought, can't trust this.
No.
I'm listening, but it's not
Yeah,
actually
it's not-
doing anything.
I think the good thing about people come tomorrow, not yourself, boss, but at the end of the day, I was really confident, where the information was, where's chat.
No test drive.
we have to be careful with your chickens and sows? Something they're like a little bit more, like new bird flu stuff. Since the back, since the back off lockdown.
Yeah, there were lots of.
Or calm down.
Before Christmas time, wasn't
Not bad, not bad. It's like lockdown, but yeah. Not the worst.
it? Yeah, yeah. There were lots of calls for, I think.
They know you.
Couldn't sell it as.
Free ready, it has been barred.
Yeah,
Within audience.
yeah, allowed without anyone. Didn't leave. They were locked up for around 4 days and they were just still flying off the walls and now.
You'll have what's Friday. It's like shills less.
Yeah.
And every bedroom has it. Like we mentioned, a window. It goes to the wall. For every bedroom, you've got a window that big. What's it do?
Stressed out.
So it opens out.
It's like got battery basically.
It's taken a bit of.
Yeah, it has taken a lot of stress out. It's taken a lot of time.
Energy.
That's one on really. I'm gonna be honest. But that's what happens, isn't it? But they'll all come today eventually. They're all coming
Yeah.
on.
Once you build a few more there.
Some of those ones for the other.
Think.
It's on its own now. And we have got the capability to put a wall, just block one door off. And then one out if we need to, I'll block one door, we design it so it can be done in.
Yeah,
Two
sections.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, you haven't seen it. Show it to me. How are we doing? No. No, it's across to the side. See this? Joe's seen it because he told me about it. I'm not.
Have you been doing any more flying, John?
Oh,
Any flying?
Shopper.
like, no, I haven't, not for.
You gonna take it up or?
I'd like to get the gym done first. Yeah, I'm really keen. I've done a few lessons. Yeah, I'm really close to it.
Village shop.
Green, yeah.
That's about
Yeah.
shop, that's about
Send it to
5
sister.
days a week.
Yeah, I'll send it to Sister Laura.
Over me, Dad.
It's so chill there, totally, like, total peace. Totally. Even in the summer, the last one I did, it was raining really hard. I was just like so chill. This is like really relaxed, aren't you? I was like, just put a piece of it, totally, yeah.
Yeah,
Really
you
nice.
think with these shops, well, you need an escape, like.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice. But what's interesting, I'm not very good at being a passenger on a plane.
You prefer to be just flyer.
It's like control, isn't it? I think it is, yeah. So.
Children get some mood right with me.
Terrible.
I think things go wrong.
Last time I got in a plane, got struck by lightning.
No.
A prop plane,
You got
in a
what?
prop plane. It was awful.
You're here. Yeah. Guys, if you can read those three, and outcome 6.0, 1 and 2, please.
I am back to those. I'm sorry, John.
So then outcome 6. So 0.1 and 0.3.
Oh, well, yeah,
That's all.
And which, in your head, Joe?
Can I pinch this for a minute?
Sorry?
Can I pinch this a minute?
Yeah, for
Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, pinch mine.
Oh, okay. Come on, Joe. Tell a hit, Joe.
John.
You can read it out, find some water in it. Oh, right, sorry, mate.
I'm just remember to play stuff.
Sorry, Sam.
Call yourself a friend.
Great, yeah, that's
What I've told you,
It's lots of them today, but
obviously
I mean,
coffee.
you missed the first session. So Sam's Nicholas 25, so it's the same numbers. A lot.
So it's members on middle
You missed it more members on. This is 25.
I met, personally, one of my pals from the side. I think Lee, and then said, your numbers, single Lee, when some got with that, the main boss went straight. I met him.
They are like an old thing.
Coffee, puts the coffee in the coffee,
Yeah.
and then the grind itself is put in the van. And the buried in the horrible, I mean, it's next to Christchurch.
I'm sure he did.
And the fucking horrible dude was on that day.
Just oh no, drug addict and you know.
It's about 8 to 10 o'clock. JT,
Camelot,
and then Helen Emery was there with them.
So Sam,
Because we had to use.
I don't remember what other numbers.
It was like 10 of them.
so you're waiting.
You play Lucky Day, you hit Lucky Day, and
Yeah.
then start playing my numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what-
Luckily, where no one around it. Just right.
Gambling, the rules of safety.
Brown thing, so on.
So, for me, some field, thing like everything in our
Church or some,
and
somewhere
like
near.
premium
Price for like.
And we've got like.
Sheep.
Yeah.
So we got there, and then we got about 4 straps, because it was 4 handles each of so big coffins, then we just like kind of.
The thing to do with it, pull them out and put them back in again.
And then so
You seem to win when you put them in.
Yeah.
We pull them out and put them back in.
you know what, I'm sure. Steve was, yeah.
Are you guys reading?
It was all we got.
Has everyone given up?
I think so.
Sounds like.
It is interesting.
The sky over. Online guys, happy? Yeah,
All of number
just
two.
catching up here now, just catching up.
Or just
Sam
point
rules
out.
applies like a vault. Sam rules applies like a vault.
Yeah. That's any rules.
So, you know, say for the Duke, who is in a vault, would they have to apply?
Okay, says, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that what you, yeah.
Sam applies for a vault, like.
Well, the royal
Okay,
vault
cool.
isn't actually a vault, is it? It's only on a flint.
Well, the point is, it's still classes in, it's still in the things, and it's still.
Just below it.
You know, the coffins that are in those vaults where he is now?
Mm.
So, who are they? Are they all just literally just stacked there as coffins waiting?
So they showed the picture the weekend after and they put sand between some of them. Just to, that was to, it was sand, it was also a material, a chalk. That was to absorb any limestone.
Quick lime it is.
That's it, yeah.
Quick lime.
To absorb any sort of damp.
Royal family coffins are already made.
They are, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're already made.
Try not to
Yeah.
lay
And they, I like to
Really?
know stuff like that, and I researched.
Because they used to be lead lined.
Yeah,
And it was it Princess Margaret that
but wasn't.
She got cremated.
cremated.
She got cremated.
So they said then they wouldn't lead line the coffin
Yeah.
until the time the person passed away.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning that they haven't pre-made?
I don't know.
I think the king, Duke and Queen's country, it was the same wood, it was the same.
Yeah, but there is a reason because there's
Not
a
levied.
massive. I read an
Who's the
article
royal
thing.
funeral director?
Well, there was Case Leviton.
Yeah.
Leviton's, that's it, not Levitt, yeah. And then in their basement, they got all the coffins ready.
Oh,
There was an article all about it. I'm going to see if I can find it.
It was Gavin who told me. You know what me and Gav's
Yeah.
like. It's
Yeah.
only boring if you
Yeah.
want that.
The lead line, because it helps preserve the body for longer, and then it says, because the Duke's literally waiting, isn't he, until she goes to go to their final memorial.
Going in Frogmore Gardens, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Frogmore.
Because it's showing you a picture of where they'll go, and it is practically in concrete floor, yeah, with her mum and dad. Mm. I'm just trying to.
Right, let's move off from Lunar Atom 6-7. Let's go on to the next one, which is Lunar Atom 7. What equipment is required to carry out an examination? It is highly likely that this will come up in your exam, this question. So a coffin large enough to hold the first coffin and all contents. A sieve to ensure any small parts that are broken away can be captured. Personal protective equipment, PPE, e.g. gloves, hazmat suits, mask, visor, overshoes. And as Greg said as well, obviously just with like the smell, the odours, just that practical point of it, which is really critical. Appropriate outdoor clothing and footwear, shovels, webbing, and again, you think about how many webbers you need because of how the state and condition of the coffin of the person.
yeah.
Appropriate vehicle to transfer the deceased person either back into the care of the FD or to the secondary location. So we used the ambulance to go from Coleshill back to Bridge North. We came back here for a short period of time and then to the cemetery. A privacy screen. So again, Greg mentioned that his examination that he carried out, there was no screens there. Usually it's done every time with that sort of discretion. Sawdust on site, washing facilities. So again, health and safety, making sure you've got access to cleaning if you need it. Again, with Craig's example, it's a great example. I mean, if you've got everything under control, ready to go, enough equipment for that situation, and suddenly that happens, can get caught out quite quickly. So just bear that in mind.
What would you use the sawdust for?
Absorb. Yeah, absorb. Disinfectant to cover the surrounding area of the open grave. And that would be the environmental health officer will be there with that usually, spraying down as you bring it out usually as well, and afterwards.
I do remember actually doing that.
Yeah.
It was him and I think one of his cronies, and they just basically did it since for the coffin.
Yeah. Yeah, so everything's all covered. Any questions at all on equipment required to carry out exhumation?
So you mentioned about potentially like a hoist to hoist it out.
We use that then.
Would that be at like the cemetery church's discretion? Obviously, if they provided it, you'd
So,
only use it.
with my one, pretty sure I liaised with the council. I costed it all out. So I liaised with the council, discussed equipment, discussed
Yeah.
costings, and the family basically paid for everything.
Did they?
I put through an estimate to them, listed it all down.
Yeah.
But for me, in my head, I thought, well, having a crane there,
Yeah.
you could say just use manpower, but what I do as well, that's to make it safer.
Yeah, I was just thinking, so who would take responsibility for like the crane though? Because someone would have to operate it and then
Yeah, that would be good operator.
Sure, the council.
Would it?
for us,
if you used to hire one, like.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to picture it. I'm sure.
They're
I
not
put,
these people that are something like
I think they might have put like ropes or chains somehow around, yeah, and then obviously just lift
Yeah.
it.
With the digger.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
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 So then they take shoring out of the grave, you know, into backfill. So they usually take out, and the family can carry it in the backfill as well, and so,
So really random, back to the royals, it says Leverton's inherited the Duke's coffin back in 1991, when they become the official royal funeral directors. but they don't actually know why or when they was all made and the reason for it.
I still know the rule.
Yeah.
I think it was Kenny. I think it was Kenny's then when Kenny.
Because I know she wasn't royal, but Leverton's did Maggie Thatcher Field in about 10 years ago.
And the same coffee maker who made Freddie Mercury's made the Royals.
Interesting.
Brandon.
Rianne, hands up, Rianne.
Probably a silly question. How do you know what size coffin to take when you do an exhumation?
So what I did for my case was I found out who carried the funeral for the young gentleman. And I called, it was a co-op in Coleshill, called them up and asked them if they didn't have the records on their file. And they didn't have the records on the file. Of his height, but they had the coffin when it was, so I knew it was of an Edward, so that helped me. So I was hopeful it would be broken down. And then height-wise, I'm just trying to think, did I ask the family about his height?
You know,
Sorry, no.
you know the crematoriums and safe burials, you have to put coffin size on most of them, don't they? So I suppose that
I was just going to say, yeah, we don't check their original
Yeah.
paperwork.
that's so hard to go
We-
with that too.
Willing or not,
Yeah.
willing or not, the records.
Yeah. So that's, as Kate said there as well, it's just, if you can get the information of the dimensions from council, fantastic as well. But always getting over the top size coffin. Casket, as Greg said, like a rectangular casket, and that way, yeah, like a wardrobe almost.
Yeah.
You're covered then.
Yeah.
So, and that's usually solid wood as well. That is. Does it say solid wood in there?
I think we just had MDF reinforced, maybe.
Was it? Yeah.
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 Just remember at 12 angles. 4 on each side and 2 on heading through.
Happy, Rianne? Happy? Go. Any questions then on the equipment?
No.
Happy? Go. So then outcome 8 is understand the need, control the risks and protection of work in remains. The health and safety executive is issue guidance on controlling the risks of infection at work with human remains. This guidance for those involved in funeral services, including embalmers, and those involved in exhumation. And it's basically got some more details there about HSE. So if you go on there for, I'm guessing will be. Activity 4 then, prepare a procedure on behalf of your employer based on the above checklist. Include in the procedure how you would personally ensure each of the requirements are managed effectively. What would you do? Just go over this shit again. The next part of this is students should consider the information in learning outcome 9 before preparing their answer. In their procedure, they should make a link to the risk assessment created in activity 3. So that's it all ties in there. For example, clothing, time of day, personnel, materials used, and documentation. This one here only asks you to reflect the 2 areas, the impact of your own role and the impact on the business. Procedure of your employee business, so that's included in procedure how you personally ensure.
What are the impacts of it? I know we've got it on the email, but
The impacts of would be your own role and the business. And just go for that additional point again. It says the student should consider their information in learner outcome 9 before preparing their answer. In the procedure, they should make a link to the risk assessment created in activity 3. So this ties into activity, the previous activity. For example, clothing, time of day, personnel, materials used, and documentation.
So say for activity 3, we've got particular headers.
Yeah.
We just transfer that into unit 4.
Copy
and then
paste it over and then expand like the previous one, just.
let them, yeah.
As in, this is how you do it. For preparing a procedure,
Yeah, a checklist.
like a check, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, fine.
And again, ensure each of the requirements are managed effectively. What would you do? So just add it on. So it's activity 3, the bolt on. Happy with that? Yeah. Cool. Self-reflection. Related to activities.
You put at the end of the book, guys.
We are ends, that is the end of the book. Book complete. So our next session, 18th June. I'll push for the coursework. Loads of your coursework's marked, that need to upload it, so you're getting that over the next few days. So, any concerns at all? Any questions?
No.
Exam questions?
Just so we can start putting like
Is there
the
any,
cards together, yeah.
real life exam question, like,
I've got past papers.
yeah,
But they've changed it though.
Yeah. If you want to see those, you
Yeah.
can do.
Because they will be, some of the questions still be the same.
like similar, just the way.
It's the old
Similar.
Yeah, I'll send you all exam papers now.
Okay.
John, you're gonna be.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I just think we've got so much revision to do.
And then you've got them. Quick, last 6 weeks, they're gone round.
No,
We seem to have ages on our last it until the exam out, but I thought it's too long. Because don't forget, because your meeting stop now, to study then to stop. I know we're going to have the odd one or two,
Yeah.
but really the routine stops now.
yeah,
And if you were given 6 months a year before you exam, you'd fallen out so much of the knowledge.
yeah,
Whereas they keep it now, even though it's only a couple of months, 2 or 3 months till the exams. At least you can sort of get yourself a revision time, take it together, sit down and sort of keep
I
building
feel like
your
that's what we need
flashcards.
to do, even though we do it every day. We don't, that's quite,
Well, even though we're not coming to see John, we could still come and go to the pub over the
yeah,
road.
we could, yeah.
Just go to party, just that's the most like,
Eating over the road.
that senior act, it's just been awkward.
Quick, John's coming down.
Okay, guys, any questions at all? All happy? Quite a heavy session. I think Craig's sort of hitting down the head really, that it's quite an intense exam and that unit's quite heavy. Not much creative freedom really, is there?
No,
It's quite rigid. The next session then, 18th of June, we'll do an exam. And if you're happy with that, we'll go for some other ideas, just challenge the book, look at more revision notes, just prepare. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And then what we'll do there is have another day, another prep day, a few weeks before the exam. And then along the way, have some team meetings, little updates.
Yeah.
I suggest now, use the WhatsApp group, put some questions on there for each other.
What we were saying.
Yeah,
yeah.
Put some questions on there for each other.
It's like quick fire.
Yeah.
See, yeah.
The platform,
Mastermind quiz.
Yeah. the comms platform is there for you all now, so just use that and then build up your own questions. And what it all comes down to is allocating time to revise. That's the big one now. That's the big grid.
Are we gonna do an exam next time without the book?
Yeah.
I think we need to.
I
I'll
think
tell
we
you
need
what,
to.
let's do it. Let's do the exam without the book, and then for the say first hour, no book, and then for the last half an hour, use your book if need be, just to go through it. I don't see what we gain, like marking here, saying, oh, you failed or you passed.
Yeah, I think that might give us a kick up the bum even more.
But I don't think, yeah,
I think the good thing about using the big today was I feel a lot more confident where information is within the room. So I don't have to use my book of it.
yeah.
So I think going forward from here, take the information out, get it on your flashcards and everything else.
So are you happy then, for the next session, sorry, 18th of June, to not have the books in? Do you want to do it?
No books.
Yeah, I
Really
agree.
like.
Yeah, because we could do no books, but then when we think we've finished the exam,
Yeah.
we can do what we've done today,
Yeah.
or talk about.
Yeah.
And then how about if we do like a mini exam in August? So
Okay.
if we all come here in August.
Yeah.
And I'll mark.
And and then you, if you do the, like, shout the answers out, and then we'll mark ourselves.
Yeah.
Because then we'll be like, if we haven't answered it right, we'll be like,
Yeah.
no, this is real life, no,
Yeah.
this could be the actual
Come
exam.
in and not talk on the day.
Serious.
Yeah,
Yeah,
serious.
come in serious.
I'd rather do that than go to pot on the day.
If we make it like 2 weeks before rather than a week before, just there's more time.
Oh,
to
God,
run down
yeah.
this.
I mean, I'd even say like 3 or
3 weeks
something.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Online guys, happy with that? 3 weeks before the exam? Not too soon, so it's like almost as in like I've got 5 days and I'm not ready. So happy with that?
And then we'll know, like, you go through what an exam could be like, as in how you invite us in the room, the timer on the board.
Okay.
I think
Have a scenario.
get us in, yeah,
Scare you.
yeah.
Okay. Scare you.
Well, we're going to go that extreme.
I mean, we've got to come in uniform.
You've got to pretend, you've got to knock at the door and pretend you're ready to do it.
Okay, great guys. Good day. Nice to see you all.
Thank you. Is it just that, learning?
Like Joe realised they've been screwing on.
That could be.
Right, online guys, thanks so much. Good to see you all. Have a good day. Enjoy your weekends.
No.
They're yours, mate. Give me your man back.
We're all right, to start with.